Go ahead, Bill.
Okay. I would like to call the July 1, 2022 meeting of the Niskayuna Town Complete Streets Committee to order. I would point out that we moved our June meeting forward 1 week or back 1 week from June 24 to July 1. So this is our June meeting, but we're holding it on July 1, and we'll have our next meeting July 29. Just quickly on the roll call. Tess Healy, not yet. I hope she'll join us. Paulina Menzo. Hi, Paulina. Thank you. Carla Dougal, I'm sure will be
Here.
along.
I'm here.
Good. Carla's here. Good. Thank you, Carla. I'm here. Dart Strayer, are you with us yet, Dart, or on the way?
Darts, I'm not able to attend today.
Okay. Dart is excused. Jim Levy is here. Hello, Jim. Elise Corbin, I was hoping without school, she might be able to join us. Andrew is here. Hello, Andrew. How are you today?
Hi, good.
And Catherine Kuzman. Is Catherine here yet?
Catherine's son is getting married tomorrow, so she can't make the meeting.
Oh, but I mean, this is Complete Streets Committee. I mean, your son's getting married tomorrow. I mean, well, anyway, congratulations to the family and congratulations to Catherine. Okay. Does anyone have any comment on the minutes for our May 27 meeting? Usually I find a typo or something, but I didn't this time. And so anybody else have a comment or any modification they want to make to May 27 minutes? Seeing none, I move the committee accept the minutes for our May 27, 2022 meeting. I'm looking for a second. Second from Paulina Menzo. And by show of hands, if we want to accept the minutes, May 27. Okay.
Carla's raising her hand.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. I would like to just have a brief privilege of the floor. Ben O'Shea is a resident of the town who lives on Regent Street, and he is interested in the Safe Routes and Roads federal funding grant, SS4A, and also is interested in some possible traffic calming things. And Ben, if you want to just give us a quick comment, you're welcome to do so. Unless there you are.
Hi, everyone. I don't really have anything necessarily to say. I just want to say thanks for letting me sit in and check out the meeting.
Okay, good. Anything you want to say about traffic in general on Regent Street, your own experience from living on the road?
Well, I've been here about 11 years, and it's basically the number one reason why we would move out of Niskayuna. We have accidents regularly at the end of the block at Knott Street, and as I'm sure Paulina can attest to, we have a lot of people that decide to get heavy on the gas pedal between Knott and Valencia in particular, because it's kind of the most convenient cut through below Balltown that gets all the way to Union. So, I'm sure there's a good reason why you guys decided to pilot a chicane on Regent Street. So, just hoping to be maybe part of the conversation about traffic calming in this area. That's all.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining, and thank you for your interest, Ben. Okay, let's move along here. Any old business? I mean, we have some items, and we'll be doing committee reports as we move along. If not, I'd like to move on to the first item, demonstration project, grant request, mini traffic circle instead of Lexington Parkway. And this is something that Supervisor Puccioni and Councilwoman Jessica Brennan and Ben O'Shea, the chief police, and I and Laura Robertson discussed. We discussed the SS4A grant, but at the same time, Ben was interested in a mini traffic circle as a possible traffic calming measure. And so I said we'd discuss it. Both the town supervisor and Councilwoman Jessica Brennan were interested in that also. And so we're going to discuss that quickly. And Laura had a couple sketches in there. And so I will defer to Laura for some additional discussion on this.
So, about moving our demonstration project from a bike lane on Lexington, which I don't think that we have to give up on. I think that it's a really good project and that should be our next demonstration project. But if there's a lot of passion right now over the mini roundabouts, which the police chief seemed like he did want to see how it would work, and Mr. O'Shea has volunteered to, talk to his residents about it. And, the town board seemed like they were willing to give it a try, that it might be worth it to take advantage of that momentum and go ahead and try one of the little mini traffic circles that we've looked at. So Mr. O'Shea was able to give me a standard from Washington of the little mini traffic circles. And we also had two actually designed for Almeria and Via Del Mar, and for Almeria and Clifton Park Road. So I don't think we need to do those intersections, but we have some pretty good standards that we could use to place one of these. And one of the things that we discussed was if we could use the Capital Coexist grant from CDTC, and I do think we could use that. It hasn't closed yet, so we could put together a proposal and send it to CDTC to see if they could help. More than happy to do that. I just wanted to make sure that the committee was okay with changing gears a little bit and working on any roundabout.
I'm sorry, this would be instead of the demo that we've already got going, the bike lanes on Lexington?
Yeah, I can't do two in 1 year. It's hard enough for me to do one. I can't do two, but we could do the mini roundabout this year, and then we could do the Lexington bike lanes next year.
Have we already reached out to the residents on Lexington Avenue?
Not yet.
How do you guys feel about that? Who's on the subcommittee for that?
Well, I was. I don't have a problem with it because I don't think we got that far along, but I have missed the last I think 2 meetings. I shouldn't necessarily speak up. I don't have a problem with it at all. I guess, Laura, my only question, if we're going to do this as a demonstration, do we have an idea of how we're going to put it up in terms of materials and things? Do we need the CDTC grant for this, or is it just some paint in the existing cones we already own? In which case, I mean, I'll pitch in a couple bucks for a couple cans of paint. We can save our CDTC ask for a demo project for another one. Just kind of thinking out loud.
Well, I think we were thinking about flower pots inside of hay bales, maybe, but we might be able to do it within our existing budget. Because we did the chicanes within the only thing I was thinking that would be a good thing for the CDTC grant would be if we pick an intersection. We have the specs from Washington and we have these, but it may still be a good idea to get an engineered plan for installing it temporarily, because even though the chief of police is on our side, he was like, well, are we just going to cover up the stop signs? And I was like, yeah, you'd have to. But when you start doing stuff like that, I think it might be, we talked about that a little bit with the chicanes. Like if we had an engineered drawing of what we were doing, it might just be that one level of higher safety.
Where would the mini roundabout go?
Well, one place we discussed was Regent and Story, but I know that's pretty close to where we did our demonstration project. And in addition to not having full support from the residents in that area, I think we also, the reason we selected Lexington is that we wanted to kind of spread the demonstrations around so that they weren't always in the same area. So we haven't honed in on a specific intersection, but the original request was Regent and Story.
Well, would it make sense, or is there a reason not to do the Clifton Park, Almeria Road intersections? I mean, have these been engineered, or are these just kind of sketched out by MJ?
Well, these are engineered. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
The one thing about doing the Almeria Clifton Park Road one, I would really like to do that one because it's a 4-way. But when we put the public comment out, I think we definitely need to do a lot of outreach, because the one thing we heard multiple times from people in Almeria was that they didn't want the roundabout. But it seemed to be tied to, they felt like the roundabout was actually encouraging traffic to come onto their road. Like, I don't know that there was enough outreach that it was a traffic calming measure. I think there, at least in the comments that I read, they were feeling like it was like essentially building a traffic circle like there is at the Rexford Bridge in their neighborhood. And it would be like, okay, well, now you're just diverting cars off of Balltown Road so they can come down our neighborhood, which is actually the complete opposite of what a mini roundabout does. But I definitely think we'd have to do some major outreach in that area, because the Elmira residents were specifically against the mini roundabout when they were commenting on the whole proposal.
This was from the drawings from the Knott Street Improvement Project. Remember,
Yeah.
the residents on Via Del Mar were upset that they thought traffic was going to get routed from the parking lot onto their street.
Correct.
And so these were the drawings from Via Del Mar and Elmira. That's why they're engineered drawings, because they came out of that whole
Yeah.
conversation.
Paid for and engineered, though, and that is one thing that would save us a lot of cost if we did this intersection, but it's going to require more outreach.
Wouldn't,
I
wouldn't
definitely don't think it should go on Regent Street, just because we've already had a demo project there and it didn't go well. And it looks like we're favoring one block and one neighborhood. I personally think we should stick to the bike lane idea on Lexington. We already have, like, from our survey, we got a lot of feedback that people like that. People like the bike rodeos. They want to see more of that. We got a lot of positive input from that. People want more of that. They've already told us they want more of that. We've got a lot of people that use that area, that walk that area. We wanted to show the town what that would look like and have that be like a permanent thing. Like, even though it would only last a month or a few weeks, we kind of wanted to show the town what that would look like. So personally, I think if we're going to spend any time and money, we should go that route and not do a similar demo project to the chicane one that didn't go over well. I hear you that there's support from the supervisor and the chief, but I'm hearing from the residents and the town, from a broader range of people, that the bike rodeo and bike lanes are things that they liked and that they wanted to see more of.
Yeah, this
agree
is
with that.
this is Andrew. I just wanted to ask. This is the first that this circle is being presented in this committee. Could Laura maybe describe more of what this momentum that's driving towards this project versus the bike lane project?
So Andrew, this isn't the first time. It's probably just the first time that it's been on here since you were on there, because this was something that was done in 2021. I don't know if you're, and but I think it's just that the town supervisor gets a lot of residents that come, which is why we did the chicanes on Regent Street, and they're just concerned about the way that traffic moves through Old Niskayuna. And so they're looking at things like speed limit and enforcement. And, you know, we did all that work on speed bumps, which we still presented to the supervisor at that meeting. But I think based on the number of the town board is going to get the negative comments mostly, right, Paulina? They get a lot of complaints about traffic in Old Niskayuna, and so traffic calming in Old Niskayuna is a high priority for them. Although bike lanes, I mean, they do narrow the road, they narrow the vision a little bit on Lexington and should slow cars down a little bit on Lexington. But I think it's just because they are really wanting to find ways to traffic calm in Old Niskayuna.
I think I came a little late, so I'm not clear on what exactly would be put up if we were to do the mini roundabouts instead of the bike lanes. Would it just be this roundabout,
Mhm.
like with no context, or would there be sort of information signs around? Would there be like some kind of traffic sign that we would put up temporarily? What else would there be besides the roundabout, if anything?
Well, I think this one would be more similar to the one we did on Regent, where we could have those signs that say this is a complete street, like, give us your comments. And, but yeah, you obviously couldn't pair this with a bike rodeo. It would be different.
It seems like
other
a good way to
problem-
like do the public outreach you were talking about, where you were mentioning that somebody was mentioning that some residents are confused that they think it's diverting traffic into their neighborhoods rather than out of it.
Yeah.
So it might be, if we're gonna put a little sign up saying you could enter your comments here, or this is being done by the Complete Streets Committee. It seems like a good opportunity to explain what it's for and what it's actually doing.
We had signage for the last one. I don't know if we can reuse that or modify that, but that's a great idea, Elise. The other problem with doing this in Old Niskayuna is the lanes are so narrow. And that was the problem we had with the chicanes. So maybe we could, if we do this at some point, if it's this year or another year, we could find a road that is wider that can accommodate a mini roundabout without, because if you see in here, I don't know if if we would implement this somehow where there's the lane divider for incoming and outgoing traffic, or if that's just part of the road. But that was the issue in Old Niskayuna, is the lanes are so narrow. So I'm not sure if there's a different part of Niskayuna, not Regent Street or not, Almeria or Via Del Mar, that this might work better on another road.
Could I make a comment, please?
Oh, yeah, you could have your
Wait.
hand raised.
Sure.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ben.
It's not fair to me for Ms. Robertson to characterize this as a either or proposition. That's not how I understood this, just so you guys know. When I met with Ms. Robertson prior to meeting with Supervisor Puccioni and Chief Cochan about this problem, she had explained to me that as long as I got support on my block, that this was something that would easily be able to be handled by Complete Streets. At no point did she tell me that there was another proposition that would be tabled in favor of this. At the meeting that we had a couple of days ago, we had targeted Regent Street in Almeria because of its proximity to Knott Street and the high number of accidents along the Knott Street corridor, and the fact that Regent Street is basically the closest cut through, as I had mentioned prior. So I apologize if you guys are all of a sudden thinking I'm trying to complain my way to getting something to happen on my block. That's not the case. I'm happy to work with you in whatever capacity I can. However, just so you know that is not the way that this is the way I understood it.
Which is your block? Almeria, Clifton Park, Via Del Mar?
I'm on Regent Street between Knott and Almeria. I'm 4 houses from Knott. And this all happened because of a particularly bad and contentious traffic accident a few weeks ago, at which point my family became involved because we were trying to keep traffic from going into the accident. And there was a poor response time from the Niskayuna Police Department, which is why I was in contact with the Chief of Police about this entire situation. And instead of talking about situations that we can't control on Knott Street, we're talking about the effects on the side streets.
Yeah,
Which
but
is the
I'm
problem.
sorry if you were offended by that. It's not an offense. The reason I said that the supervisor receives a lot of complaints is because you are not the only one. I'm not using your name. It's not
No, at no point
driven
was that said
specifically by
as-
you. Yeah.
I'm not offended by it. However, I think that it's a mischaracterization to say that this is how this came about. So
Yeah,
I
fair. I
apologize
mean,
if I
I'm just-
offended
yeah.
you. It's right. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I appreciate the work that all of you guys do. This is important work. So if there's any way that I can help, please let me know. But as far as I'm concerned, I'll wait to be reached out to. I'm happy to listen.
Well, I think it's, we've looked at these mini roundabouts before, Ben. We looked at Almeria and Via Del Mar, and then Almeria and Clifton Park Road. And we also looked at one that was Clifton Park Road and Crescent, which was kind of an aspect of an early design that M&J had done on that particular intersection. I mean, we're we have examples of traffic calming, and I guess just, the one aspect that I, would echo Laura was, this seemed to be something that the police chief was open to, and the town board was open to, and so that's we wouldn't have to work on persuading them. This was an idea that they're kind of responding to a situation and wanting to do something about it. There's a couple options. One is, we have talked about North Allendale and Fieldstone Estates. I don't know if that's another neighborhood where the police have already discussed a speed problem. And, so we wouldn't necessarily have to go to Old Niskuna unless we felt like it. But I also hear, Paulina's point. One, we don't have to say no to this. We could do a roundabout next year as well. And we could continue with our plan to do the bike lanes on Lexington Parkway. And, just echoing Laura's point that it's a lot of headache to try to do two projects. And we've spent some time working on Lexington Parkway. And, if we want to stay with that project, we certainly could do that. And I'd certainly like to hear from some other folks on the committee on these ideas.
Okay. I think actually the traffic circle or the mini traffic circle, that it would make traffic move more quickly through there. They have a yield sign. I was just driving through on the way over, but you have the 4-way stop and that makes everyone stop so that if there are people biking through or walking through, they're forced to stop. So unless there's a backup of traffic there, and I don't know if that's an issue at Elmira and Clifton Park and Elmira and Via Del Mar, but I think it would just sort of make the traffic move more quickly as it does, say, at River Road and Rosendale, even though that's a bigger circle. But is there evidence that that's not the case, or?
So the stop signs, I live on Via Del Mar, and I often have to go down to Dean Street. There are 5 or 6 stop signs you have to go through if you want to. It's 6. So if you start in Balltown and you go down to Dean Street or vice versa, there are 6 stop signs, and a lot of cars just get tired of that, and they're just straight up running the stop signs by the time they get to the other end. So I think eventually something like this, even if we don't do it this year for the demonstration project, I think eventually something like this would be a good idea because people just get really impatient with the stop signs in Elmira. Bicyclists, walkers don't really. Not really talking about walkers, but bicyclists do, drivers do. I think the roundabouts would be a good thing to sort of acknowledge and fix that problem and say, okay, so maybe you don't have to stop every time, but at least you do have to slow down and look. But I do understand that the bike lanes might be something the town and the people would prefer more.
Well, yeah, and Carla, they are supported by the Federal Highways Administration as traffic calming. So your comments are how a lot of people I think feel about them, which is one of the reasons it would be really cool to demonstrate them because even when we were doing that outreach for the Knott project,
yeah.
Most of the comments we got were we don't want a mini roundabout.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason that Ben has been so helpful in bringing this information forward is he lived in Seattle where there were a whole bunch of these. He has a lot of experience with them and they work there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely work and they have their place. I think if we're going to do one, we need to identify a location that makes sense. I was thinking, I know, Laura, you're worried about, the committee's ability to pull all this off because it is a lot of work. And I totally understand that. I've done plenty of these on my own as a consultant. But, this located up on Rankin and Clifton Park during the school year would actually, and it's a pretty wide intersection, I don't know if it's quite wide enough, would actually be a fantastic demo project because there's so much traffic coming in and out of that intersection, getting in and out of the high school every day. And when it's not jammed up with cars, they do run through the stop sign here and the stop sign at Valencia and the stop sign at Regent. It'd be great if we could tie this into, the same time that we say we were to do the bike lanes, so we could kind of do it all at once as a big informational push and do that as part of the, the kind of festival we'd have, I would assume up in Lexington Boulevard. But as you said, it's a lot of work. We'd have to get it engineered, and it's a lot to kind of to pull off. So at the same time, I totally understand where Pauline is coming from, but I also understand that it's good for us to be flexible and look at what some of the priorities are for those who are dealing with this on a daily basis. The police chief and supervisor, and trying to I don't know, work with the current concerns or whatever that come up. I mean, obviously there's as Ben mentioned, there's obviously an issue at that intersection. People aren't paying attention to the stop signs that are there and the information that's there to tell drivers how to act. So there's a problem. But it's like anything else. There are lots of issues to discuss and lots of opportunities to do outreach, but only so much we can do at once. So unfortunately, it's a prioritization thing. How much can we pull off and which do we want to do? So I can kind of go either way. I certainly see where it goes, and I do like the idea of supporting, what the chief is looking for and making sure we're working with him and what the supervisor is looking at. I don't know. I could go either way. So my comments don't help at all. Sorry.
Well, I would, one as a resident on Clifton Park Road, I'd say most of the folks on my street are not going to see Elmira on Clifton Park Road as a problem. They'd say we get through that intersection easily now, and they might be concerned that, the traffic circle would be promoting faster traffic going through there. And they might even like the idea of, just having the stop signs stay there. And one other thought I have, which is, I do want to echo, we did get kind of a stiff negative reaction from folks on Regent Street when we were at Regent in Barcelona, and Ben saying this would be Regent in Almeria. And I don't know if there are people on Regent that would say, gee, there's lots of streets in Niskayuna. Could you try one of your experiments on another road somewhere? And so I am, kind of sympathetic to that. And, we do want to give the experiments a chance to go. And if the town board gets some kind of negative blowback, that might even be some carryover from our chicanes. I don't want to cast a negative pall over something that might actually be a useful traffic calming device. I'd like to give it a fair chance on another road, either Rankin and Clifton Park or over on Fieldstone or some other place where there's a speeding issue.
I agree with you, Bill. I think unfortunately at this point, if we went back to the same block where we did our chicanes, the same area, I think we'd have a problem. I think that's a given. I don't think that this is going to go over well if we go back over there. I just don't. We got a lot of pushback initially. So I do think we need to look at the locations, even if there's an issue there. There are issues in other places too. And certainly, I totally understand where Ben's coming from. But, we do have issues in other places. And just given the feedback we had previously, I think we should try another location for whatever it is we want to do, at least for this next one. Not to say we can't go back there and do something there and that something shouldn't be continued to be discussed and looked at. But as a demo project, I think we should probably pick somewhere else, just in general. Somewhere that we think it'll work. And I hate to bring it up, but as far as the bike lanes go, when we went to do bike lanes over at VA, we got pushback on doing them on Grand. Now I understand that's a county road, but we've had pushback on that idea too. And a lot of this is about education. People just don't always understand exactly what it is we're trying to do or how. But it can be tough. I do this for a living, and I know it can be really difficult. So we do have a lot of support for it, but we've also got some pushback. So I think we just have to be very strategic in our thinking of what we do and where. That's all.
Do we have any data? I wasn't at the recent meeting with the police chief, but, is there data on these streets saying that whatever speeding or people running that stop sign that shows that a mini roundabout is the best traffic calming solution there?
Well, what we talked about, which I think is a really good idea, and we've talked about this as a committee too, is that we want to do before and after studies. So So what we were gonna do is if we can identify a good intersection where we could implement the mini roundabout, we would study it for a month or two before and then implement the roundabout and then study it during the roundabout so we could see like how it actually changed traffic patterns.
So Jim, do you know off the top of your head, like what do mini roundabouts help? What are they the best solution for?
It all depends. I mean, it depends on the situation and the scenario, but if you have a high crash location, they can certainly help. They do help facilitate the movement of traffic, but they're also generally safer. I mean, that's why we're putting in, this is a mini roundabout, but that's why the state's putting in larger roundabouts all over the state. They are generally safer for moving vehicles through intersections and facilitate safer movement than, say, stop signs where people aren't paying attention to them and where you get traffic backups. And those traffic backups, which is not necessarily what's happening in this unit, it's just impatient drivers, but those traffic backups create impatient drivers that then go start blowing through signs or rolling through stop signs and aren't paying attention. Even with the mini roundabout, you have to divert, do them right. If it's just being on the ground, people are going to drive straight over them. But usually they're made with little mountable curbs and everything. And I've got that picture I showed you guys, the rendering I did in Boston Spa last year. If they're done right, the driver has to divert. So even if they're rolling through where previously they would have stopped, they still have to make that movement where they're actually paying attention in the intersection and making that little diversion around, the roundabout and the road. So overall, generally speaking, they are absolutely safer. We need to look at it. And, Laura, we can always pull crash reports for intersections and see if we can, I might be able to do it, but MJ could certainly have an engineer, run a crash analysis to see if the crash is higher than the standard for that typical type of road in the state of New York, which would give us a crash rating to see if we have an issue there that's larger than what's typically found. So there's certainly things we can do. And if as Laura said, we're doing research on these before, after, and making assessments of those, that's how we start to build the case that, these make sense and where we should be looking.
Right,
So
like
there-
let's find an intersection that makes a mini roundabout makes sense for, rather than just say Region and Almeria, because we don't really have that many crashes at Region and Almeria, and there's no cars are backed up there. Like people briefly stop at that intersection. There's hardly ever multiple cars stop there at the same time. Even
Well, that's something different. I think, like I say, we just have impatient drivers as opposed to backups per se.
But my point is, like, let's look at actual data and figure out where it makes sense to have the solution, rather than just pick a solution and pick a location. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's figure out where it makes sense to have this type of solution and then do the before and after data.
So the data also shows that it's safer for, the data also shows it's safer for pedestrians and bicyclists, or?
Yeah, so I'm just reading right off the NACDA website. Just Google mini roundabouts from the NACDA website. Mini roundabouts have been shown to increase safety at intersections. A mini roundabout on a residential street keeps speeds to a minimum, and they're highly recommended. And that's like the definitive thing on traffic.
Correct.
Can I get a sense from the committee? Would most folks prefer to stay with their original plan on the bike lanes for 2022 and do some more research on the mini roundabouts, as well as more research on a location that would be a good fit for one, that the chief of police and the town board would agree it's a good fit and, willing to give it a try? Or since the chief of police and the town board members are interested in, taking a look at this, much as we hope they would with platforms. As Laura mentioned, there's a little momentum there. Do we want to try and ride that to get one of these in somewhere and then take a look at the results? So that's kind of the question, and we can't spend too much more time on this. So I guess I'm wondering if we can get a little sense of where we're at from the committee and what you'd like to do. And
Bill, I told you, I'm on the fence. But Laura, I do have a question. I mean, you said we'd probably have to get this engineered. I mean, how quickly could we reasonably get something engineered if we identified an intersection? I mean, is that something you can get one of the engineering consultants to pull together pretty quickly, or are we looking at 6-9 months? You know,
Oh,
I just
no,
want,
yeah, I think they could do it in a matter of weeks. Yeah.
Okay. you have that capacity. Okay.
I think if residents want the bike lanes and they like the idea of bike lanes on Lexington, but it's going to be kind of a long struggle to figure out where they would most want a mini roundabout and where it would be most needed. I think we should go with the bike lanes for this year, but I'm open to being convinced otherwise if it turns out that it takes a shorter amount of time and that people do want a mini roundabout somewhere.
Andrew or Carla, any thoughts?
Yeah, let's see. I would probably go with the. I would probably go with the bike lane. I think Elise is right. You need to take some time and best time and looking at the best situation. Do you have to expand the intersection at all
No.
or it's all the
Mhm.
existing framework?
Yeah.
So it's not that big of a deal,
Mhm.
and it's just a matter of, Well, actually, I'm open to either. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, this is Andrew. I'm open to either. I just think we should try to get one done this year. So if there's momentum enough to get the roundabout done in a short amount of time, I'm certainly open to that. The bike lane seems more straightforward at this point, but I'm open.
Okay. Did you, Ben, have something you wanted to say quickly? Ben, you have to turn your microphone on. I can't hear you, Ben. I don't know if you're.
He actually had to come back in once. He entered again. So yeah, I don't. So maybe he's.
He
just
might
having
have
bad
frozen,
connection.
Bill. He might have frozen.
Okay. Well, how about you, Laura?
I'm sorry, were you guys asking for my opinion? I'm sorry, I lost service right at the bottom of Town Road there at the river. I'm sorry, were you asking why I had my hand up?
Yeah, we were just kind of discussing the bike lane or the turnaround, and you had your hand up. So,
well, I was. Thank you, and I apologize for the delay on that. If I could just speak from my own personal experience with the mini roundabouts, or traffic circles is what I know them as. Just and I don't expect you guys to go either way with this. But what seems to be missing is that really it's a way for it to deter the traffic from dumping into the neighborhoods. It achieves a lot of things. As soon as you turn off of Knott Street and you see something, just for instance, at that intersection, and I'm not married to it being at that intersection, but the idea of having in our town, I think, is very beneficial. And so to be able to have people know that there are going to be 1 or 2 or 3 of these in the way of them to get to the intersection that they're trying to get to before they dump back onto the arterials, I think is very important. It forces everybody to obey the right of way when they approach the intersection, which I think is also very important. It doesn't require a full stop about 95% of the time. However,
of course, if you're looking for a traffic device that's going to keep people from going on Regent, then, I mean, if they do want to head south on Knott Street, does that mean they're going to look for another road, which would be Keys or Clifton Park or Valencia or Main Street, where
That's
you're
part of
less traffic on Regent, but that traffic is still going to be on another road. So you're moving it off Regent, but moving it to a street, 1 or 2 streets from Regent.
That's part
So
of
the idea is to keep the traffic on Balltown, and so we can't do much about the county road right now, Dean Street. Dean would be the next one, of course. It's the next one that cuts all the way through Union. But if we can demo a traffic calming device in a neighborhood and have it be successful and be able to point at it as one solution for other neighborhoods that have a similar problem, then I think that's a win for a lot of people. So whether it happens on Regent Street or not, I think this is a really important place that needs to come to Niskuna and replace a lot of four-way stops, which one very important thing is that when people approach these stop signs, they stop at the last minute and then they gun it. They floor it. So we're talking about wasted gas, greenhouse emissions. We're talking about unsafe speeds out of the intersection. We're talking about noise in the neighborhood. We're talking a lot of things. And so if you don't actually have to stop and you can coast through at a slow speed, your momentum and like it's all done in a much safer way. And there's a big reason why this is popular out west. So I really do appreciate your time, everybody, and I'm done talking. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so Bill, I was just saying that that's for the reasons Laura said for the before and after kind of assessment, right? We talked about this with Wyoming. If we're going to do anything on Wyoming, a little bit to where everybody goes, 1 second. We have to have the data ahead of time to kind of understand what's going on with the traffic flows. Then you put something like this in and kind of assess what happens with traffic, right? How does it change the pattern, if at all, so that we can then understand what it looks like. And I guess part of my thought, and I don't know, I don't mean to complicate things, but maybe we can kind of kill two birds with one stone, is what if we were to consider Wyoming Avenue, the end of Wyoming, where there's an existing yield sign for the potential for a mini roundabout. We already have people using that as a yield, just kind of rolling through. We know that there's an issue there of near misses and people going through the intersection too quickly with a high number of vehicles. I'm wondering if we can tie that in, and again, it's going to change things. I don't know if we want to go down this road or not, but if we were to potentially move the bike lanes further down Lexington so that they were on the portion of Lexington by the park, the triangle park, the triangle piece of undeveloped property there at the end of Wyoming, we might be able to tie all this together if we think we can pull it off. It is a lot more work. But in that intersection, I think there's enough width to be able to consider something like that.
It's kind of two projects.
It is absolutely two projects. There's no question. It's a lot more work, as Laura said. Again, I'm just throwing it out there, but it absolutely is two projects and a lot more work.
I would be a little trepidatious because it is two projects. I mean, one is a bike lane, so we have to talk to residents about doing that. And I hear Ben's point that they may be a safety feature, and they work in Seattle. But it almost seems to me like we'd have to do some work on what would be an appropriate intersection to give it a try. We'd have to do some work on talking to the neighbors and that sort of thing. And I mean, I guess I'm a little bit leaning towards the bike lane for this summer because we've done some work already. We've kind of talked about 2 blocks. We're going to do some painting. We're going to have an education thing. And I also think that we certainly next year, a mini traffic circle could be something we'd want to do. I mean, we're already July, and so we're kind of running short on time to be switching off of one and switching to another, particularly where the bike lanes have been to the committee, and hopefully the support's there, and I'm hopeful that there's support on the people on Lexington to do it. And I mean, I don't want to say no. I actually think it has merit. The data that Laura has reported, makes sense, and it would be a good option. And I guess I just feel like we almost need to know some roads where there's speed, some roads where neighbors would be very much open to an option like this to reduce speed, make an intersection more workable, and to do that. And I mean, I guess it just seems to me like we might have a little more work. Now, I understand that we have the supervisor and the police chief behind us, but I'm not sure that's going to change. I mean, if they're behind it, they're kind of giving us an assignment. Hey, complete streets. We've got some problems in town. This might be a solution. So, let's do a dry run or a live run, I guess it would be somewhere, and see what we get. But I don't want to go back to Regent because I feel like we were over there before and we just run the risk on that road. So if we can't do Regent, then we're grabbing around at other intersections, and we really don't have one that we're ready to go on, I don't think, and we'd have to do research and get the police chief and the town board on board before we did it. So
Hey, Bill and Laura, if there's this momentum with the town, the supervisor and the police chief, and what I'm hearing a lot of is needing data and identifying intersections and things like that, is there the potential that they would allocate funds to like hire MJ or one of the town designated engineers to do this study?
I mean,
Thank you, Andrew. I was gonna jump in on that too. I wanna push my idea out there before you answer, Laura. I was thinking like, let's get this momentum. If the police chief and the supervisor are all for this and there's momentum behind this, let's use this SS4A grant to get a town-wide action plan. Let's hire an organization like Andrew just suggested, or put it out to bid and get 3 quotes and have someone look at Old Niskayuna or Niskayuna in its entirety and do an assessment. What's our safety action plan? What is the best solution for Old Niskayuna roads versus Balltown Road versus Route 7? And use that grant money to look at how complex our road system is and what are the safety issues that we face for pedestrians and cars and cyclists, and then give us recommendations. Because we're just like shooting in the dark here, and we're like, well, maybe it's mini roundabouts, maybe it's chicane, maybe it's this, and we're doing the best we can as a volunteer group. But now that we have the grant money, let's hire somebody to figure it out and give us recommendations. And then we take that report and get more grant money and make actionable steps and say, here's what they recommended. Here's now our plan moving forward.
One footnote to that, Paulina, the safety action plan, I mean, that's competitive money. And so there needs to be some discussion about, getting that. And I do think, that money would certainly support doing the kinds of things that you're talking about. I still think we could do, the bike lanes, we could fit that in even at the same time that we're, applying for the SS4A money, because it's not exactly clear who's going to apply and whether we'll get the money, and kind of whether it would be used for Troy Road or something like that. And I do think you have a good point that fitting into the safety action plan, speed and various things, and where is a good idea. But that getting that award is probably over the winter or something like that, and then how we use that. I mean, I'm just kind of looking at July, August, September. And, I mean, I guess we've already 2022 project, and then talk about what we want to do for next year. And I agree with you that getting that money and using it to look at speed and other things in Old Niskayuna in the town is a good idea. It is a good idea.
Laura, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just, we've been working on complete streets projects a lot, and we try these things, and sometimes I get pushbacks and I get like, why are you doing that? And so it was just exciting to kind of have the town board and the police chief to be like, this is cool. We want to try it. Can you bring this to complete streets? Do you guys think you could do this? And I mean, I definitely was like, yeah, I think we could do this. If we don't do it this year, I don't think that's the end of the world, but I definitely think that we should be really respectful to that momentum. And if we make sure that we're putting it in the right place and studying, yeah, I think that like maybe looking for money, to get it designed would be good. But I don't want to lose that they reached out to us to try something, which we haven't had happen yet. So that's just my one thought on that.
Well, I hear that too. As a matter of fact, we have a list of projects that would be action plan things that we would do if we get the federal money. And we're even recommending many of these ideas as things that if we don't do SS4A, if there's state safe routes to school money or other funding things, I mean, working with the town board is a good thing. If they're asking us to take a look at do something, and we're asking them to take a look at our list of projects and to try to get some of them done. I mean, there's something to be said for, the town board's asking to look at this and to see if it's doable. Then we're back to, okay, let's find an intersection that might work. We'll find an engineering firm that would maybe take a look at that intersection, and we can give it a try. And the bike lanes on Lex, I mean, that doesn't go away. Lexington's not going away. We can go back to that next summer as well too. So
Bill, the bike lanes on Lex themselves aren't that hard to pull off if we do the public outreach. It's the event that goes with it that I think is going to be a heavy lift. I'm just putting that out there. I put bike lanes out in Boston Spa in 3 hours with 4 other people. So, it can be done. It's the outreach that has to be done, certainly. But the festival event that we typically do that goes around that for the education component, which is vitally important, that's where there's a lot more work that goes into it. We have to reach out to a lot of other people for that. So if we want to tweak things, I certainly can. And this is why I'm on the fence, because I really do want to support what, the police chief and others are looking to do, because we have the police chief support, the town highway department support and others, to keep this stuff moving forward. Obviously grant money is important too. So I don't know. Like I said, putting the lines down is not a big deal. There is an effort to reach out to the neighbors and get some coordination done. It's the festival that will take time. But, if we wanted to try and pull off projects, but on that festival part, I think that would take a lot of the pressure off of the committee, some of the effort that's needed. But again, it is still 2 projects. There is no question. And I think we need to identify that intersection. I don't know if any have been, if we pull crash data.
Well, but I'm open to 2 projects. I don't know if Laura is. I mean, especially, we paint the lanes on and, we set up our table, we hand out some information. We certainly can do that. And I'm more than happy to talk to everybody on Lexington, myself, that lives between Regent and Clifton Park Road. And, there is a thought that, well, why don't we do some homework on the mini roundabouts to see, is there an intersection somewhere? And can we get engineered? Is the board supportive? Then let's do 2. I mean, I'm okay with that, especially if we've got one that we've kind of have reasonably planned out. And actually, the town board members probably like going to a bike rodeo type festival, with the bike lanes. And we can work on the other one too. We can find an intersection, get it designed, and give it a try. I'm happy to do 2.
Yeah, so if you think we can simplify the bike lanes, I'm happy to personally buy the tape. I've actually got a bunch of rolls of tape left from my last effort I did. If we want to put tape down, I can do that. So we don't have to go to CDTC for money for that. That's where I was coming from originally with, let's make sure our CDTC ask is for something where we need it. And if we think we can pull off the other one soonish, or depending on what CDTC's timeline is to spend that money, I think a mini roundabout request to CDTC for the linkage study would actually go over really well. I highly doubt they've had another one. And for them, that would be a huge demonstration project for them, to be able to then utilize to tell other people about. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. And I'm happy to buy the tape. Like I said, I've already got it if we want to use tape. And
Okay.
I think a couple of us can put that down. So it's all about how far we go. And I know we need to move on to other things, but it's about how far I think we put some of these compared to.
Well, committee members, let me ask. I'm willing to do 2. I mean, we got some people on the fence, some that want one, some that want the other, but I think we can do both of them, to tell you the truth. And I want to, the rest of the committee members think those are doable. I
Well,
do.
Jim's idea with the Wyoming would be great, because you're starting with like a 3-way intersection, so it simplifies it. And it's also, we've heard, many complaints from the residents about that area. So that, I mean, I think that's a great idea.
I agree. If the people in Wyoming really want it and the people in Regent really don't, then I think Wyoming would be a great place to do it, especially because it's an easy way to have people, if you want to do the bike lanes and the bike stuff, you can go over to Lexington. But if you want to see our traffic calming measures that we're working on, you can go over to Wyoming. So I do think it's a good idea if we can pull it off.
Yes, with the people on Wyoming, though, say, we just want a stop sign at the end of Wyoming. If you put a traffic circle there, people are just going to go even faster through the intersection. And it's going to draw more traffic on Wyoming. So
That's a question we have to ask Bill. And if
Yeah.
we keep getting that response, then we're going to have to do some education with the residents of the town about why these are important, or they're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Well,
And
you
one
could
thing
do
that
both.
is interesting about Wyoming is if you read the NACO guidelines and the mini roundabouts, they say they work best on uncontrolled intersections, which I know Wyoming has a yield, so it's considered controlled, but it's not really controlled. So that may be a good place to try the mini roundabout, because their recommendation is, although it is kind of a weird angle.
It is an angle. We'd have to look at it. But it just seems to me we have support, and you can do these at three-way intersections. It's already a yield sign. We don't have to pull one down. We'd have to put up two temporary signs. And I don't know that we're going to have a lot of data to back it up, but we do have a lot of neighbors who are complaining that intersection is extremely problematic. So it might be an answer. It might not be. It was just the first idea I had for a potential location that might have support. And that's what we need. We need to find locations that have support to do these, and then expand from there. As much as I would love to do more in region, because I think it's necessary, I don't think that's the way to go right now.
There's,
my
al-
opinion.
there's also that heavy vegetation on the corners. Have they gotten rid of that?
So Bill, I guess I'll put out there, I'm in support of both.
I don't
I'm
quite-
more than willing to help, and I'll buy the supplies to do the tape and whatever on Lexington, so we don't have to go to CDTC for that. It won't be that expensive to put the bike lines down.
Okay. Andrew, are you a both person?
I'm in favor of what Jim just described.
Okay. Anyone else? Paulina, where are you here? Or Elise?
As I said, I'm in favor of both.
Okay.
But if we had to pick one, I would go for the bike lanes, I think.
Okay. Tess, you've joined us. We can't back up and repeat all the discussion, but the town board has asked us to consider doing a mini roundabout somewhere, but we'd still like to do the bike lanes on Lexington because we've made some progress on that. And we want to be respectful of a wish from the town board because we're going to be asking them to do things to support us. And so I guess our discussion is really, we're kind of at the point where we think we might be able to do both. We can certainly do the bike lanes on Lex and maybe have a little bit of a public education event, either to kick those off or at the close. And we can also move forward on looking at an appropriate location for a mini roundabout. If the town board's supportive of it, then we should take advantage of that momentum, find a spot, and get it designed, put one in, and see what the reaction is from residents and the town board members.
Would it happen on the same day or different days?
Oh, no. The mini would be on different days, really. The mini, I think, the mini roundabout would go up for, I don't know, a couple of weeks or a month or something like that. And then, we'd get some before data and some after data. And the one thing about Wyoming is we do have quite a bit of before data. We've got traffic volumes and we've got speed data. And we could get some on Baker Avenue too, for that matter.
Does a mini roundabout support complete streets?
Yes, it's a traffic calming device, which Ben has said, they use in Seattle and other places, that it does presumably slow traffic or allows traffic to move more efficiently through intersections. And, it's the same thing as we tried to get the board to go with speed humps. They didn't want to, but this is a case where the town board seems open to trying something. So, maybe we should capitalize on that and give it a try and see.
Are we
what
going
we-
to prioritize one over the other?
Well, yeah, people on the committee, we have support for both. And so our thought now is, well, let's just do both of them. That way we can go ahead with our bike lane project that we want to do. And we also can find an intersection if there's an engineering firm out there that can do the engineering in a month or something like that and set up a temporary roundabout. And we'll get some before data and after data that it'll be a good thing. We can do both.
So the bike lanes, I already drafted up some concepts, so they're on paper so people can see what they look like, on Lexington. So now it's just a matter of picking a time and talking to the neighbors is the big issue right now, and then obviously getting approval from the town to do it. The other one, I think we do need to find an intersection. I threw out Wyoming. I think it would make sense, at least based on what we've heard from the neighbors, but we don't know. As Bill said, they may come back and say that's not at all what we want. We need to find a location, I think, that would be supportive.
Well, I
of this.
think there are some in the town, so I think we could do a little research. We probably could
Right,
find.
and there may be
five
other
places.
intersections. Right, there may be other intersections that would be better, but so I think we need to do a little research on that one. So I think we're a little further ahead with the bike lanes. And I think those should really go down, during the summer. I think something like the mini roundabout could be later in the season. The bike lanes, we have to worry about leaf removal and other things. The mini roundabout would not be the same. It'd be in the middle of the road. So leaf removal is not the same issue, say later in the fall, if we were to start approaching that type of, season. Not to say we don't want to do it then, obviously, but, I think the bike lanes are a little further along, but I think we can advance both and assume we're going to do the bike lanes, hopefully by the end of the summer, and maybe a mini roundabout sometime this summer or fall. I don't think it'll take that long to identify locations, and then Laura will just have to see what she can do to get it engineered, pick one and get them engineered.
Our timing was maybe mid-September, I thought, for the bike lanes, just because most people, like a lot of people do travel in the summer. But
Yeah.
there won't be any leaf pickup in mid-September. That doesn't start until the end or October even.
Yeah, so we can move them both and kind of see where the timing goes. But I think the next step for us is to start talking about reaching out to the neighbors if the town's okay with the bike lanes idea. And then also tell them we do want to identify, and then I think the other thing would be, Bill, we tell them we do want to help work with them to identify an intersection to potentially put in a mini roundabout. So I think to me are the next two steps, right? Get the
Yeah,
approval
it's a
from Lex,
double win.
talk to-
We'll do the bike lanes. We'll invite the town board to come and meet the citizens, and we'll get to work on a appropriate intersection for a mini roundabout. And so we'll make the board happy on both counts. That's my opinion. And unless I hear a strong opponent somewhere, we can't spend too much more of today's meeting with that. And that's what I recommend, is that we do both and we continue to move forward on both of them. And the mini roundabouts, we got to find an intersection, and then talk to town board about getting M&J or somebody to engineer it and give it a try.
Sounds good to me.
Anybody else have a comment on this before we move off this item? And I'm suggesting we do both. And I know Laura's not happy. She says she can't do both, but maybe the committee can do a little bit more work and prevent her from drowning. Okay. Since I don't hear anybody with a violent objection to trying to give them both a shot, that I propose that be the plan, and I'm assuming that the committee's willing to do that, unless I hear some strong objection at this point.
So I
Well,
think we
again,
need
I think that's
I think we need to set up a subcommittee meeting to get that moving, because yeah, if we really want to do that, then we really got to dive in and start creating.
Sure.
I mean, some of the letters are done and stuff, but somebody's got to start. We got to start meeting outside of our monthly meeting and actually start working on that.
We do have a subcommittee for Lexington, and we can meet, and we can also set up a subcommittee for the mini roundabout, and those folks can get started.
No, it's got to be one subcommittee, please.
Oh, okay. Well, make it both. We'll have a subcommittee meeting, and maybe we can do that at town hall in a week or so, or once we get past the 4th of July, and we'll iron some of these things out and get going. Okay. Let's talk a little bit. Would you like me, or Laura, would you like to just update the committee? We had a preliminary meeting on the Safe Streets for All Federal, and maybe just your thoughts about CDTC or the county or involved, and just the fact that we have to have a safety action plan first before we can do implementation, and kind of what our conclusion was at the end of that meeting with the town supervisor.
Yeah, so like I said, I thought that was a really good meeting. There was a lot of support for Complete Streets at that meeting, both, from the supervisor and the chief of police, which is just progress. It takes a long time, but I think slowly we start rolling into being the norm, which was really exciting. And then we looked at this grant called Safe Streets for All. and it is a large grant. Like the minimum for the safety action plans is $200,000, and the minimum for an implementation is $5 million. So one of the things we discussed at the meeting was this is something that is really good for the town. Like we want to get a safety action plan. We want to start creating shovel ready projects. One of the things that we talked about the supervisor, which I think is on the agenda later, is that we want to start putting, cost estimates on our list so that when we're looking for grants, we have the numbers handy and can just give them to people like Phil Stack, who's been very generous to the town of Niskuna, and just keep pushing these projects forward to the next level. I always talk about the CDTC is the municipal or sometimes I get that wrong, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and they represent Saratoga, Rensselaer, Schenectady, and Albany County. And so what I thought is it would make the most sense to reach out to CDTC and see if they were interested in applying for this grant, because then they could do little chapters for each, of the areas, and then we would have these safety action plans that we could use for an implementation grant in the future. I did reach out to CDTC, and they actually already have a safety action plan. I haven't read it yet, so I got to do a little more research on that, but it could put us in a potential implementation category. But the problem with an implementation category is it's very hard to justify $5 million in the town of Niskuna on town streets. So then we're looking at working like with the state or with the county. Not that that's a super big problem. Most of the areas that we have our main complete streets issues are in state and county roads, but it just adds a little complexity to it. So I'm working on it. If you guys are paging through and you have any thoughts or ideas on that grant, send them over to me. I do think it's something that we want to try and explore and be ready for, because there does seem to be a lot of money that's coming from the bipartisan Build Back Better bill. And so making sure that we're keeping track of all of these different things and getting ready for them is only going to benefit Niskuna and the residents.
So can the town apply for the 200,000 to develop our own safety action plan?
So it can, but I mean, this is what I said at the meeting. It's competitive countrywide. We're not talking about competitive New York statewide or, region wide. We're talking about the entire countrywide. And the issue there is going to be spending $200,000 on 20,000 people, right? So that's why you want to try and get it at a slightly higher level, because our cost benefit ratios, the federal government, when they're looking at spending dollars, they often look at benefit cost ratio, and it's going to be tough to be competitive with only 20,000 people.
I watched the webinar for it, Laura, and they kind of, dropped a lot of hints on how to be more competitive. So I'm happy to share that, but I would really push that we make our own safety action plan for, all of Niskuna, so that we have our own guidelines as to what to do for future implementation action. And, I know that their focus is on zero fatalities and zero crashes by a certain date, but I think we can use that as a launching point for a lot of complete streets goals and just get a basic plan.
Yeah, Paulina, if you want to call me and let me know what your ideas were from that webinar, that would be really great. I mean, obviously $200,000 going into a study of Niskuna would be phenomenal. Getting it awarded to us is going to be the hard part. But it does sound like
figure out what, I don't know that we need the whole $200,000. If we figure out how much, an assessment from.
That's the minimum. That's the minimum that they award, though.
Oh, that is the minimum.
Yeah. So,
Right,
because one of the other thoughts we had was CDTC is not going to go for the that because they already have a safety action plan. They're just going to spend their own internal money to make their safety action plan, be what the government needs. But I mean, we could also reach out to Schenectady County, which would give us more numbers too. Sorry, Jim.
No, so that's exactly right. So I was going to say the way to do this to be more competitive, and I've not seen the video Paulina has seen, but I've done a lot of, studies for municipalities and others, is we need to pull in, others with us. So it is a study for Niskayuna, but it needs to include Schenectady County, i.e. Schenectady County Planning. We need to talk with and say CTA. We're going to include discussions with NISDOT, all the typical partners you have in a corridor study or even a land use study. We need to pull all of them in because we will be looking at county roads and state roads as well in Niskayuna. So while it's just in Niskayuna, we have to say that we're going to actually be working with and partnering with all these other agencies to talk about this. So it's not just about bikes and peds and cars, but we're also talking about transit, right? And we're talking about other ways people get around. And all of those entities really should be part of it. That's how CDTC and every other MPO does their linkage studies. They have partners with all of these different agencies because that's what you have to do. So the hope would be that we would have all of them sign on, maybe even provide, if we can get it from them, a letter stating that they think it's important and they'll be part of the process. But that's typically how, corridor studies through the MPOs and DOTs and other always work. You always have every agency that has a potential stake in a geographical area engaged in that study. So it crosses borders that way. So it is just Niskayuna, but it's not just Niskayuna.
Plus, we don't have the duplicative risk there that Glenville applies, Rotterdam applies, the city of Schenectady or the county that, the county submits one application for an action plan to do a study so that, neighborhoods like Old Niskayuna or Troy Road or whatever, there's some of those in Glenville, some in Rotterdam, some in Niskayuna, some in the city. And you've got some steps that you can do to reduce fatalities and whatever. And you get the action plan out of the way doing that. You spend the $200,000 doing that. Then once there's an action plan in place, then we start looking at some of the things that, we've been talking about to apply for infrastructure expending. So, I mean, I think I understand September 15 is coming up and we want to apply. If CDTC doesn't have a comprehensive safety plan that we could use, or we've got to do one. And if the county's not interested or whatever, then, we definitely got to submit. But, county planning says, gee, this is a lot of money. We could spread the 200,000 or more around really all the towns in the county as well as the city. And then we have an action plan. And then each of the towns can, apply for grant funding, action plan stuff for road improvements or crosswalks or whatever that apply to their town.
So that wasn't what I had mentioned, but that is another option. Certainly, if the county wanted to do it, and it would be more. You'll spend the $200,000 if we do a townwide safety assessment. Trust me, it'll go.
Oh, I see.
If you wanted to do one at the countywide level, you're talking a lot more money, and we could do that, but someone would have to bring that forward and then get other communities involved. And that's a pretty big lift if it hasn't already been discussed. So.
Well, I'm saying that the supervisor in Glenville has been pretty ambitious about getting money, and he probably is not going to let this go by. So then the feds are going to say, gee, I've got one from Glenville. I've got one from Niskayuna. I might even have one for Rotterdam. So I've got a lot of duplicative stuff here. Schenectady County really should be submitting one application since you're competing nationwide and you're going to cover all the bases here for everybody in the county.
Oh yeah, I hear you. It's just that's a different level of.
Well, I think it can still happen though. I mean, we want to really countywide. We want to maximize the chance that we can get the money to do a safety action plan, and that might be a way of doing it.
So maybe Paulina and Jim, if you have a little time next week, we could just do an internal Google Meet call where Paulina, you could share some of the things that you heard at the webinar, and then Jim, you could just talk about some of your knowledge of what the cost would be, because I didn't think we could spend a $200,000 grant in the town of Niskayuna, but if you think we could, we could just get together and brainstorm on it a little.
I could absolutely find a way for you to have a consultant spend that kind of money. It depends on how far in the weeds you want to go, but it'll go fast. It can go really fast. The linkage studies from CDTC typically run between $50,000 and $80,000 for a corridor study. So a town-wide safety assessment, $200,000 is not out of the question when you're going and doing a lot of, deep dives into data and things like that.
And the money can only for analysis, you can't use it to put in any safety features?
No, well, there are two different processes. There's a plan fund and there's an implementation fund. And I believe, Paulina, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't do the implementation money without having a plan, and the town doesn't have a plan.
Correct.
I believe that's generally how it works.
Well, but CDTC has a safety action plan, which they think will count. So CDTC is saying
Okay.
that you could potentially go to an implementation, but I agree with you guys in what I think that Niskayuna in the long run would benefit from $200,000 of a safety action plan for Niskayuna itself, because yeah, I do
But-
think.
Plans are what get you money for implementation. It's really hard to get implementation money without a plan. It's a fact. You have to show the commitment from all the partners and the town and everyone else that you've already put in the work.
The feds are clear about that in the grant application. You've got to have a comprehensive safety action plan, and the action things that you want to do to repair infrastructure have got to follow the safety action plan.
And then the money from the state that's fed through CDTC and others is all going to have the same type of thing. It's all competitive, and they all want to see that you've already done your analysis and your studies, and all the partners are in agreement, that kind of thing.
What, I mean, but if CDTC's already got that, I mean, that's a good thing there. If we don't have to do that step, and the feds, they say if you've already got a plan, I mean, they would you could probably do some phone calls or something and say, look, would this qualify? And if they say, yeah, we would accept that, then you can move on to implementation.
I think a plan, would be great. And the fact that CDTC has theirs, which I knew about and didn't click in my brain, actually is a way of also enhancing an application for a plan for the town. There's already been one done region-wide. We're looking to now narrow that down town-wide, even looking at some, border areas, crossings, things like that, to other municipalities that touch Niskayuna. To
Oh, yeah,
bring that
and
up to another level.
We could do,
That'd be even more competitive.
Their safety action plan includes like crash data or like dangerous areas. And
It does include that, although when I was talking to them, they did say, like, because I said, we'd be, because it tends to, like, the much higher roads, like when we were talking, like, these types of grants would go to, like, Route 7 or Belltown Road, something like that. Like, we couldn't probably do, like, Regent with this type of a grant. But she said that it doesn't have Route 7, like, specifically, but it does have, it does have crash data analysis and stuff for the 4 counties in it.
would
County roads be included?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I can send you guys the link, but what I think would be helpful, at least for me, is to chat offline with Paulina and Jim and just see if we think that it's doable. I know that the town board would support us doing it for sure. We're talking that I was kind of like, well, let me call the CTC.
I think it's totally doable, doing this professionally. I think the town is at a point where, we have some information documents we can use to say that, there's efforts that have gone on. We've got comp plans, we've got the committee, CDTC original study, but the town doesn't have a lot of transportation focused studies, and it doesn't have a safety study at all. So I think we're at a point where we could put in a very competitive application. But again, as you said, Laura, we're competing against the rest of the United States. So it's not a given by any means. It's going to be super competitive like everything else with transportation funding.
okay. I think that should happen. I encourage everybody to read the grant that came out with the agenda. If you've got some thoughts, pass those along to Laura so Jim and Paulina can consider those. We only have about 12 minutes left here. I'm going to try to finish by 4. So I did send an Excel spreadsheet where I listed some projects that we've discussed in committee over the last couple of years. When I read the grant, it felt like safe routes to schools was something that they stressed. And, considering the existing road work, we may not have a lot of fatalities on folks getting to school, but I do think you can say with the roadway conditions, we do have a lot of schools, and some of them virtually have no pedestrian access. Craig School would be one. Rosendale would probably be another. We do have some limitations even at Birchwood. It might, there are a few families I'm sure that walk there. And so what I did with the spreadsheet was really just to say, gee, if we get some grant money, what are some implementation projects that we would be looking at? and also just to share with the town board so that they see what we're looking at, what we're working on, and there may be some ideas, that they like. And what the supervisor said was, oh, I see this list, but one is I'd like to know how long each one of these projects is, meaning percent of a mile or how many feet. And then I'd also like to see some cost estimates on this. So if I am looking at my budget and I've got some money and I'm looking through, but I might be able to do something for 100,000 or whatever. And so she asked about getting some cost estimates. So when I just, in my email, I asked people, would you look over the list? Does it seem to kind of fit what we've been talking about, what you'd like to see done in the town? If there's something else that you want to add, send me an email on that. If there is one of these items that you think could drop off, we can do that. And then I thought I'd ask Laura about seeing if maybe Clark could help with just how many feet or what percent of a mile each of these are. And then using some of the standard cost estimates for an asphalt side path or a sidewalk or a push button crosswalk. I mean, we could at least cite the source that we get the cost estimate from and list those on there. So we want to start working on that. Can you say in 30 seconds, Laura, anything about Clifton Park Road and Crescent Avenue, the M&J design? Is there any progress on that or any possibilities or anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, we're still working on it. We talked about it for a long time at the Economic Development Committee meeting this morning. And the planning board is really working with, the business owners, mostly the Broken Inn, to see if we can leverage the developer to implement some of that design. But it's going to take a while. So the planning board wants to come up with a plan with the developer and then do a public hearing. And then I'd have to go to the town board and it'll get referred to you guys to look. So it's still moving forward, but nothing to be submitted yet.
Okay. Number 2 on planning projects update. Is there one or two things on that you want to bring to our attention?
The only thing is potentially still working with the developers on River's Ledge to get the sidewalk from Aqueduct Park up to where the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail crosses Aqueduct Road. I believe they may have installed a portion of the sidewalk, and working on getting them to do the rest here as part of their phase 2. So stay tuned on that. But unless you guys had specific questions, that's all I wanted to mention.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention what Laura didn't mention it, but I was thrilled to see that the connection's been made from Windsor Drive down to Platnick Park, and then the connection kind of along the road over to the other neighborhood where the trail is. So, we talked about it and it's happened. It's on the ground. So I think that's going to become very popular once people realize it's there and the construction maybe slows down and the houses are in. So I was thrilled to see that. And that's just, that's one that got done. So I just want to point it out.
Yeah, and actually we don't have any money. We could sell a few pumpkin pies and try to do something, but that's not going to get very far in infrastructure. So we are working hard to spend money that Metroplex has, National Grid, the county, the school district, the state, the town, whomever and wherever, including private developers. And so I do feel good seeing the Knott Street project in front of the co-op. I mean, we were an advocate for that, and that's happened. The crosswalk that gets us as part of the Kelts property over to Blatnick Park. I mean, that's a good thing, and it makes the bike path safer there. And the school district, we're still following up with those folks. And the town board is interested in the federal grant. They hopefully they're going to go ahead with the sidewalk on Plum from BA over to Hillside. So we are starting to see some movement on actual infrastructure things happening, which should give us some encouragement to stay with it. And I'm happy about those. The 2022 priority letters, we approved those. Do I just need to come by and sign them, Laura, or did you want to have some additional discussion on those?
I think you just need to schedule a time with me to come by and sign them.
Okay. Just a lightning round in the next 5 minutes here. One is I did go and speak at privilege of the floor at the April 26th school board meeting. Or no, maybe it was April 26th. Anyway, there was a gentleman, Robert Grand, who's a project manager with Turner Construction Company. I mean, he said that he's doing the work for the school district. He said, look, I'd be happy to talk to you. I'd like to take our recommendations on the school campus and sit down and talk to him. And, you know, the school board, they're interested in things that, you know, promote education. And some of our ideas fall into, if we got money left, we'll consider doing these. But he said he's willing to have another meeting and talk. And so I'd like to take him up on it, have a couple members of our committee just go over what we presented in our package. And really our emphasis that you're already mobilized, you're doing parking lot and other trail work. How about taking a look at doing some of the stuff that we've asked to make each campus? So I would like to do that. We talked about having a meeting with the state and Mr. Sicaldo, and there's another gentleman that was doing the SS4, who was a state folk. And I really want to kind of look at the things, put together a list of items that we would like to talk to the regional director of planning for DOT, which could be Crescent Road and Balltown Road. It could be the crosswalk at Hickory. It could be the 25-mile-an-hour speed zone on Balltown Road. It could be maybe even a crosswalk. I'm just saying the ideas that we've talked about, whatever we want to talk to the state guy about, we're going to have a list. Ask the town supervisor to go to the meeting and obviously Laura, maybe a couple people from the streets, if they're willing to talk to us. And I think they are, that we should kind of do what Paulina encourages. Let's schedule a meeting and go and talk to them. I do want to say a little bit about utility quarters. We had a short meeting where Elise and Catherine and Carla and I met, and either Carla or Elise want to jump in and just summarize what we talked about a little bit on utility quarters.
So Carla and I had both, I biked down in the area and Carla had been walking down in the area when we met. So we both discussed our experiences on the utility corridor paths near the Mohawk Hudson bike trail. I happened to access the specific path I walked on through the trail. So what we mostly spent the meeting doing was trying to take our maps of the utility corridors and where we understand them to be and translate them onto the larger complete streets map and see how it lines up. So just so that we understand where they are and what neighborhoods are being serviced by each one. I definitely think that the ones we've identified, I think I had 3 on my maps, and I think there are a couple more in this. There might be a couple more in this unit that we haven't identified yet, but I definitely think that each one has a specific couple of neighborhoods that are right now really cut off from the rest of Niskayuna and cut off from a safe place to bike and a safe place to walk. And these utility corridors, if we can get that done, would really help with that. So we have 2 digitized maps, I think, and we're working on getting the utility corridor map onto the regular complete streets map using GIS. Schenectady County Planner is going to do that for us. So that's everything I remember us doing. But Carla or Bill, if you remember something else, feel free to jump in.
Carla?
I got cut off from the meeting a little early, but so I'm not sure how it ended. But yeah, we were talking about a couple. I mean, Elise did a great job presenting that. But we were just talking about. I think we identified the 2 corridors, like one that from Route 7 to that through River Road Park and connects up with the bike path. And also the one that I thought would be very beneficial, that I know Jim had talked about, but one that kind of connects the island development out on Balltown Road, and like it kind of a nice, direct, safe route to the town center and the River Ledge apartments, and I mean, that would be helpful. But yeah, and I really have nothing else to add right now.
The thing that Carla and Catherine Kuzman and Elise, we discussed was, we still have some work the town to work with the utility quarter people. But as a first step, we talked about that some of the use that's right now is just people that they cross-country ski in the wintertime in the utility quarters. They may walk the dog on trails. I mean, they may not be far from their homes, or walk with the kids, or may have a bike with knobby tires on it that they can ride on, or it's a place just to walk to see some nature. And I think Jim even mentioned this before, that, before we get to the point of talking to them about paving the trails that are there, one is just kind of getting permission from the utility quarter for, the public to use these, and just kind of using the dirt trails or whatever the trails that are now, that there may be as a recreational resource for people to walk the dog, take hikes, cross-country ski, to get out. And another thing that Carla mentioned was people on the south side of Troy Road, if we either have a way going across on Mohegan Road, or actually if you can get into the, where the power station, the transfer power station is there, that, you could walk where you maybe if you're on the south side of Troy Road, can get over to Rosendale Road. If we ever had a side pad there, that you'd have a way for people to be able to get to Iroquois School or the Elisha Preserve, or access to River Road Park, or even the Mohawk Hudson bike trail. And so there are some options, some good things I think that would happen, even if we can the town would work with the utility quarter to get permission for people to use those trails. And some of them where they're either tree logs that block things, or something else that we might be able to do some work to minimize those. Just one more thing. Councilwoman Jessica Brennan said there are young people in the apartments that are off of Hillside Avenue and on the west side of Balltown Road. And if you miss the bus or whatever, it's kind of hard to get over to Craig Elementary School. And she was like, what could be done? I mean, if somebody doesn't have a car and they want to get their kid to Craig Elementary School, it's kind of thinking of how would a parent get someone over there? And, one thought I had was maybe a walk path that would get you from the apartment complex to the back of the Jewish Community Center, or the road that runs down to Knowles Road from the JCC or something.
Bill.
So, yep.
I'm sorry to cut you off. This is a really good discussion, but I think it's going to need more time than 2 minutes. And I can share with you the design that we have for the crosswalk. And also we secured an easement with the county in order to be able to create a trail just like that, but it would still need work through the JCC. But I'm happy to put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay. Well, we probably have to close shop for the day. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn. I want to thank all the members for a good discussion today, and really for all the work that people are doing. I do have some counts on Crescent Balltown Road, and so did Elise. So we'll talk about that in our next meeting too, of jaywalkers or whatever. But it's good discussion today. Hope everybody has a good weekend. And so I move we adjourn, and I thank everyone for being here. Looking for a second on that. From Paulina. Okay, and our homework again is give some thought to the roundabout, to read the grant, and we'll have some subcommittee meetings where we'll do some more work. So thank you all for coming today.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Bill.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, everybody.